Hi, this is Pat Moorhead from Moor Insights Strategy, and welcome to yet another 6-5 Live podcast. I'm here with Daniel Newman from Futurum Research, and we are here to talk about a major acquisition that's going on. Marvell is acquiring Inphi for $10 billion. How you doing, Daniel?
Pat, good morning. It's bright and early, but hey, we wanted to break this story. Yeah, there's a few articles published, but nothing in depth yet. This just happened overnight. Another $10 billion plus deal in the semiconductor space. Just a few days after AMD announced the acquisition of Xilinx. I thought the next time we were going to jump on here was going to be maybe talking about Amazon's big earnings tonight, or Apple or Google, or gosh, so many things are happening. But no, these companies just keep consolidating, keep acquiring, Pat. And you had the chance to talk to some CEOs last night.
Yeah, it was nice. I was on the phone with Marvell CEO Matt Murphy, Inphi CEO Dr. Ford Tamer, with a conversation. And they took me through the deal. They took me through the rationalization. They pitched. Marvell has been quite the turnaround. If you look at the leadership under Matt, it's been pretty incredible. If you look at their stock price, if you look at their multiples, it's been pretty awesome. And unlike NVIDIA and AMD, who don't do a lot of acquisitions, this company does and has done a lot of acquisitions and divestitures. If you look at it, Quanta, QLogic, Avera Semi, and Cavium, the company has a good reflex on it. But let's dive into some of the deal specifics. It's a $10 billion stock and cash, enterprise value of approximately $40 billion. They are bringing on $4 billion extra in debt, immediately accretive, which is super nice. And increases their TAM of the overall company to $23 billion. What's not in any of this in the accretive call is that they're expecting $125 million in 18 months in the closing of the transaction. Obviously, as you would expect, CEO Matt Murphy is going to remain CEO of the company. Jean Hu, CFO. Inphi CEO Ford Tamer is going to join the Marvell board. They're going to add an extra seat. Nobody is getting bumped off.
Yeah, it was a big deal, Pat. The size of the deal is huge. The kind of came out of nowhere, which is great because it means that the companies were doing the right things behind the scene. Nothing really leaked out until just about 12 hours before. And the companies are addressing a couple of areas that are really going to be continuing to grow in importance. And that's the connectivity within the data center and the connectivity between data centers. And yeah, I just want to second your comments. As we've been tracking Marvell over the past year, the company has definitely shown some strength and turnaround. You and I have had their CMO Chris Koopmans on from the rebranding of the company to the to just the way the company has been able to integrate its acquisitions successfully. And I think that's something here, by the way, that's important to point out is when we talked about the AMD Xilinx, we said it's a great acquisition. It's got a ton of opportunity for the company. There's going to be, of course, some challenges, but the one thing everyone's been asking is, well, AMD doesn't do a lot of acquisitions, at least not in recent time. Marvell has almost entirely achieved and reached its current status through a series of very smart acquisitions and sound practice when it came to the integration.
That's good comments there. And Daniel, let me this is another first here as well. I'm going to show a slide from the deal deck here. Probably a lot of you are familiar with Marvell and what they do. So they do compute, networking, security, and storage chips for data-centric applications. And that can be in the data center, it can be at a carrier, and it can be at the edge. Specifically on networking, they operate mostly in copper. And what Inphi does is they operate with DSPs for fiber optics. So It's much higher speed connections, a little more expensive, can go up to 2 kilometers, believe it or not, where copper can't. And like you said, there are a lot of trends that I think this really leans into. A great example is an availability zone for the hyperscalers, where you want to have some resiliency, and you want your data centers to be far enough away that there is resiliency, but close enough that you can actually communicate. And I'm going to put up what I think is a pretty cool slide here on the data center. So you can see my mouse here. This is a data center, and this is a data center. And typically, you had to go from top rack switch to the edge to, believe it or not, another box that would get you over the internet to talk to this data center. And what Inphi's silicon does is allows you to connect an end-to-rack switch and also a core switch that I think is pretty cool. And then, as you can see, this is the 5G carrier going from the RAN, the radio unit, to the baseband, to the central unit, to the backhaul, all connected by fiber. And that's about as nerdy as I'm going to get here, because this is not a technology show. And by the way, the other thing I wanted to remind you is that do not watch this show and take it for investment purposes. This is for entertainment and education only. Do not make investments based upon what Daniel and I ever say. In fact, just do the opposite.
Well, but if you happen to buy Inphi like a day or two ago, you're probably pretty happy this morning, because that's on fire right now. Yeah, but Pat, I think, there's a couple of really important things. The companies have a lot of complementary tech. The strength of Inphi really was in connecting the data center within the data center. Marvell had a huge play in enterprise, automotive, and what you're starting to see is that portfolio expand. You're also seeing that sort of meeting that insatiable demand to be able to connect more data more quickly. And there are differences, and there's differences in where the copper and where the fiber optics are going to provide value. And the fiber optics is really when it comes down to speed and throughput. It's going to be able to push that data. And when you're talking whether it's over distances or, as you mentioned, with cloud data centers growing at scale, you talk about the Azures and AWSs that are adding availability zones. What Marvell and Inphi together are going to be able to offer is a compelling set of technologies to all these hyperscale cloud companies that are building and connecting these regions and zones to make sure that there's a seamless connection between them. And it's a really strong play for a couple of companies that don't necessarily get the credit or the commentary. I know Matt Murphy and Jim Cramer have a good relationship, so Marvell finds its way onto CNBC that way sometimes. But overall, I mean, when you think silicon, you think you're thinking Intel, you're thinking AMD, you're thinking NVIDIA, Qualcomm. You're not thinking Marvell, you're not thinking Inphi. But this new company, it may force us all to put it into our crosshairs. In a positive way. I guess you put it into our conversation decks, into our narratives a little bit more frequently, and making sure it's getting proper coverage, because it's influencing and impacting the world in a meaningful, material way, Pat.
Yeah, and here's how the two come together. So, those fancy diagrams that I showed before is where Inphi plays, but let's take the cloud data center, right? Inphi is leading in there with people like AWS, Azure, with fiber inside and between the data centers. And with Marvell, they come in with their DPU. And yes, through the Cavium acquisition, they had the first DPU. They just didn't coin it like that. It's smart, Nick. And also there is storage silicon as well for hot and cold. And then when you look at the two companies attacking 5G wireless infrastructure, right? You have Marvell, who's leading with base station compute, their ASICs, but also their programmable Cavium silicon, and then Inphi does the front haul and the back haul. So this is how you get 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. What you want is 1 + 1 = 1.5, maybe 3, or something like that.
Yeah, you get more out of the combined company. You create efficiencies. This is not an opportunity. There are some cost synergies that were noted in the company's release, but this is not, again, a deal that's about cost synergies. This is a deal about expansion, CAGR growth, category growth that you're going to see in the double digits, a much larger $23 billion TAM that these companies put together. Also, a number of big customers. I think it added $400 million plus customers to the overall company together. So you start putting all these things together. I mean, this is a company that's got a very focused market. The companies that are buying from from both Marvell and Inphi know Marvell and Inphi. This is not a broad customer database, but it is a set of customers that spend a lot of money every year. And if these companies continue to innovate, that will lock the new combined merged companies up to see expanded growth and to continue to really have a strong hold on the markets in which they serve. And I think it's encouraging. It's also encouraging to see another player rise, Pat. It's always good to see more players rise. I feel like it's a little bit of a broken record thing, but I love how innovation drives innovation. That's what makes that's what makes our ecosystem here in the business and the tech Silicon Valley and Silicon Prairie down there in Austin so great is that the innovation continues to push, and these deals, this consolidation will certainly draw some attention. But what did you and I say in the beginning of the year? Chips will eat the world. People say software will eat the world, but not without the chips. And that's exactly what we're seeing with all this consolidation.
Yeah, this is fun stuff. It was so funny. I was just saying yesterday how, hey, Pat, when do you think you're going to be up at 4:00 in the morning and get a call from another CEO? And I'm just thinking, probably not for a long time. And it's so funny. $40 billion with NVIDIA and ARM was the largest semiconductor deal ever. And this one's $10 billion. So it's small, right? No, this is a very large deal. So, Daniel, as in life, there are winners and there are losers here. And I want to talk a little bit about the competition, primarily Broadcom, Acacia, Maxim, and MACOM. So Maxim and MACOM are all about analog, and they're still doing fiber optic chips over analog. I don't see that as a future, and I'm very skeptical if they can scale and hit the speeds, the power that Inphi can here. You have Acacia that was acquired by Cisco, which was interesting. And Cisco's a really interesting company in that they're one of the few OEMs that actually does their own silicon. As we saw with Silicon One, and again, this Acacia acquisition that hasn't been approved yet. I don't see it not getting approving, but it just shows how hot the space are. And then you've got Broadcom. Okay, Broadcom, very unfocused right now. I mean, a semiconductor company that's buying software companies, and to me, looks more like a GE. Where it makes acquisitions that aren't really it's more of an investment house than pulling things together that have additive value. But competition makes the world go around, and Qualcomm has been thumping Broadcom on Wi-Fi mesh, basically kicked Broadcom out of that market and came in and grabbed that in consumer and commercial. And here we have another one.
Yeah, and I'll only touch on this quickly because one, I want to keep this short. I know the call for all those out there that want to hear more about this starts in just a few minutes. Of course, there'll be new competition raised here. I think the Cisco Acacia deal will get done soon, and Cisco will certainly be competing in portions of where these two companies are going to operate. And yeah, I like what you said about Broadcom. I've been tracking Hock Tan, technically AVGO, Avago, CEO. His strategy has seemed to be more about value acquisitions, and the deal is to buy things, try to get things in under distressed, basically tear them down to the studs and then try to build back up with efficiencies through the company's aggregate capabilities. And so, again, this is a little bit of a premium investment being made by Marvell. This is not an investment that was made at a discount. This is an investment made for synergy. Starting. This is a call.
That was the call.
This is a call that everybody should be, if you're into the chip space, you should be trying to tune in, or at least getting the cliff notes later, or just listening to us, Pat. Hopefully we gave the people what they need to know here. If we sound a little quiet and a little tired, that's because we've been up late, long nights all week as these companies keep making acquisitions and keep pumping out earnings, but that's what we do. We're here to inform and entertain. And as Pat said, to never give you investment advice.
Have a good one. And why don't y'all hop over to Marvell's investor relations site and listen to the call, because that's exactly what Daniel and I are going to do. Take care and have a good one.